we're moving on to how about the movement going on here in MMA? Holly Holm asked for her release. She got it. Mike, you surprised?
No, I'm not. I think the UFC has squeezed every bit of juice out of the career of Holly Holm as it possibly could at this point in time. So, you know, I think like Danny mentioned someone like an Alien Perez, like she's got her own momentum, things like that. Like someone on a streak like her would probably end up fighting a Holly Holm in a main event, like at the Apex. That's usually the scenarios that we kind of get. And then she'd probably lose. So like, I think getting Holly out of the way, allowing this division to flourish a little bit makes sense. She can go return to boxing, end her career there, and I think there is actually some like notable fights out there, right? Like she could fight Amanda Serrano, she could fight Katie Taylor. These are people in her weight range that have really elevated the sport of women's boxing. It is a completely different entity as it was both exposure wise and pay wise as it was when Holly Holm last competed in boxing more than 10 years ago. So I think that makes a lot of sense for her. See Oatmeal 2-6 in the comments mentioned Karate Combat. I could see that as well. She says she wants to do one more MMA fight, one more boxing fight. So I think this just kind of made sense now for them to take this clean split. And if you listen to her interview with Ariel Helwani, she said that the final 2 fights on her contract were not promised, which kind of leads me to believe maybe she asked for her release before the UFC could get around to releasing her on its own.
Danny, Patricio Pitbull Frady has been very vocal about wanting to get out of the PFL, and it looks like he got his wish. But when Dana White was asked about him, he kind of really didn't have any definitive answer. I know he was getting ready to board a plane, but he went out of his way to say that he'll have to talk to the guys to see. How about you? Do you think he winds up there, and do you think he could have an impact in the featherweight division?
I really hope so, because there are so many fun fights for him, and I think he can compete both at 145 and 155. Imagine Patricio versus Volkanovski, Patricio versus Max Holloway. I think, he's obviously towards the tail end of his career, but I think you could get 2-3 good fights out of him. This is a guy that we've always wanted to see in the UFC for such a long time. He's a free agent now, still relatively in his prime, big name. If you want to spice up the featherweight division, look, and maybe he just wins one fight at featherweight and then you throw him up against Ilya. Who knows? That could be really fun as well. I think the UFC should sign him, even just to get 2-3 fights out of him. I think it's worth the money. So yeah, hopefully we see him in the UFC.
MMA fans, don't laugh. Eddie Alvarez came over from Bellator and won a title. Michael Chandler's won some big fights. Ben Askren won one as well. There's been a few others that have come through and done well, and this is arguably the best fighter Bellator's ever had. He's a champ over there, so we'll see. But he is kind of on the tail end of his career. But when Dana was asked about Aaron Pico, he said the matchmaker is really like that one. How about you, man? This is another featherweight who's got some wrestling and nice hands.
Oh yeah, and so much room for improvement, right? He's a lot younger. I think that's a big thing when we're talking about some of these fighters and how they're gonna come over. A guy like Pitbull, it's gonna be difficult, like negotiating your contract, especially when you don't have very many options outside. But a guy like Pico that has so much upside, I think this might actually work out for him, and I think he would be really fun in the UFC.
Vili Koistinen, something like that, says Pitbull versus Ige. I like that one. Mike, Chris Weidman retired, straight to the Hall of Fame. Thoughts on his career real quick, please?
Well, hopefully not straight to the Hall of Fame. I'm a strong believer, give these guys like a moratorium of retirement window, because the Jose Aldo thing just broke my heart. They put him in the Hall of Fame, then he came right back. So like, I don't want to see any of that. Make sure they're retired for a little bit of time. But yeah, overdue. Weidman. You wonder if this missed spinning back kick against Luke Rockhold didn't happen, where his career would be at. That seemed like the turning point for the worst for him. But yeah, I mean, the Anderson Silva fights, he had a strong run as middleweight champion. I think he will be in the Hall of Fame. And yeah, this was the right time. I mean, I wish he retired after the leg break, but he really wanted to come back and show that he could fight and overcome that adversity. He did that, but just not the same guy.
3 title defenses. Yeah, for sure. I think he deserves to go in the Hall of Fame, and he's the one that took out Anderson Silva.